So my name is Marcus Oliver. I am a med student over at Rocky Vista College of Osteopathic Medicine, Southern Utah, in Ivins, Utah. And I had an interesting thing happen to me as I started my first year of med school. I lost about 20 pounds. And then some of the people I was working with and studying with and working hard to try to get through that first year of school, I noticed that they gained like 20 plus pounds. And so I just kind of kept thinking maybe it's just us. But then after I kept seeing it in more and more people in my class, I thought maybe this is something that we can quantify. Maybe this is something that would be worth taking a look at. So I went to the literature and I found out that 40% of physicians are overweight and 23% are considered obese. And I was thinking, well, that's not great. I actually also found a study that said overweight physicians, their ability to counsel on health changes can be impaired because, I mean, who are you going to trust more? Let's just talk about, like, say, an athletic trainer. Who would you trust more? Somebody who looks like they might live walk the walk versus somebody who doesn't. And so that ability to counsel actually was impaired for the physicians who are overweight versus not. And so not only does it affect the physician, but it affects their patients. And so we wanted to go ahead and figure out, is this something, is med school a catalyst for an unhealthy lifestyle? Do people forego self-care, essentially, so that way they can have success and that way they can, achieve this dream of being a physician, which is a worthy, lofty goal, but is it affecting actually negatively their patients? And is med school the catalyst to cause that? So what we went ahead and did is we started measuring the class below us. Our time had come and gone for first year. So we took the first week, or the next class below us, their first week, we measured their BMI, body fat percentage, and gave them a survey. And the survey was about, male, female, and also what's your diet? Are you exercising? Just try to get a little bit more information on what their lifestyle was like. So we we measured them right as they walked in the door, right after Christmas break, because before nobody was going to come because there's finals, and then right at the very end of their first year, as close as we could to finals, so that way they could still come in and feel comfortable talking to us. And then we did it once at the beginning of their second year, so that we could figure out, okay, what's the beginning of first year, what's the beginning of second year. And Eryn Reager is going to talk about what we found out, and then Ben's going to talk about some of the stats, some of the statistical analyses that we employed to try to look closely at that. I'll finish up with a conclusion and talk about where this project's headed next. All right, so turn the time over to Eryn Reager.
Hello, my name is Eryn Reager. I am going to discuss the raw data that we collected in order to support our hypothesis that medical students would increase in body weight and body fat percentage over a year of studying. We collected the data over 4 times in the year. As you see, there's G1, G2, G3, and G4. Respectively, that's going to be the fall of the first year, after winter break, the spring, the end of the first year, and then the fall, beginning of the second year. As you can see by both charts, as we expected, both BMI and body fat percentage significantly increased. However, in G2 BMI, as you can notice, it increased significantly, whereas in G2, the body fat percent did not increase as much. My colleague Ben will discuss this further when he talks about the statistical analysis, but we believe there might have been some confounding variables that could have affected the body mass without affecting the percentage of body fat. Things like salty foods can cause water retention, and they can cause significant increases in weight without really affecting the amount of body fat they have. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Robbins. In Table 1, we considered a few different variables that affected the increase in body mass index and percent body fat. These included biological sex, poor diet, increased age, lack of exercise, and fast food consumption, and then a conglomerate of all of these called treatment. The only variables that showed significance for an increased BMI were biological sex and poor diet, whereas significance was shown for an increased body fat percentage with biological sex, poor diet, increased age, and lack of exercise. If we look at figure 3, on the other hand, this shows the plot of body mass index and body fat percentage that we collected at each measurement point. And we found that the trend was a positive correlation between these two measurements. So we hypothesized that body mass index and body fat trends are due to changes in body mass distribution and conversion of muscle to body fat as a result of increased sedentary activity common in medical school. We can't confirm this hypothesis, though, because we don't have enough information yet. We're still collecting data in the same cohort, and we'll do so in future cohorts as well, in the hopes that we can increase the power of the study and ultimately confirm our hypothesis.
So, as Ben mentioned, this is an underpowered study, so it's difficult for us to publish it at this point. So we basically need more information. That's what this says. This is a preliminary study. This is the first time this has been looked at. I couldn't find anything online necessarily talking about first-year medical student changes. So we wanted to dig into this a little bit more deeply. And so what we decided to do is we wanted to get a grant. So we got a grant for $15,000, and we are going to get Fitbits, and we're going to get a continuous stream of what are some of the physical changes that people have. We're also going to do a standardized diet survey, and so we can get that information. We'll have that done routinely. And then lastly, we actually found somebody in Argentina who does cortisol as almost like an A1C, so that way we can actually look at cortisol for the past 3 months instead of just a snapshot of what's happening. And so we're excited to see where that goes. We really think if we can get this to be adequately powered and to show that there are some significant changes that med school is pushing people into an unhealthy lifestyle that's negatively affecting the patients, are there some changes that we can make for medical education? Are there some positive things that we can do to help these individuals as physicians, these physician students? Is there anything we can do for them? What changes can we make? That's the hope that we can do. So we want to prove that, have adequately powered, get this new information, and move forward with that. I'll be here if you want to ask any questions. I'm more than happy to answer those and talk about maybe where this is going to go in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. And
good evening, everyone. It's a hard time, and everyone's feeling it in different ways.
I mean, it was a great
and
speech,
I know a lot of folks are.
Okay. Sorry about that. Love the YouTube autoplay. All right. It looks like we did have a couple of questions. All right. Looks like Dr. Babbitts asked, any chance you could get some lipid samples to see changes?
There we go. I'd love to get lipid samples. I don't think that that's out of the question. I think at our school, because it was a new campus put up, I think it was hard for us to find a lot of laboratory results to use. We couldn't do any blood draws. We were kind of limited on a lot of measurements that we did. So we thought we would also start with the one that's still used on all vitals. That's why we went with BMI. But we also wanted to make sure that if there was a transition from certain types of mass, say muscle to fat, that's why we followed up with the body fat percentage. So the closest thing we could get at the time would be lipid samples, but I'd like to do that in the future, or at least encourage another campus who can maybe replicate the study. I think that'd be a good thing to do.
Great. And then Dr. Jensen, is information collected pertaining to subject lifestyle or exercise habits?
And you want to do that one? You still there, dude?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. The question was it collected by exercise habits or, I'm sorry, can you say the question again?
Sure. Is information collected pertaining to subject lifestyle or exercise habits?
So both of those factors were taken into account. So we did a paper survey, and it was just basically their subjective reporting of had they exercised more or less, and what their food intake was. So it was just a subjective recording of that information collection.
Great. Dr. McGill, if you could infer med school is really causal, if you had a control group for the next study, are you planning on that?
I'd love to get a control group for that. I noticed that, especially in my presentation, I made a big point of saying that is med school the causation for this. I think that would be a next step in the research to try to figure that out. I think at this point, just where we are, it would be to figure out if there was a change. So the null hypothesis essentially was there's no change in physical habitus of first-year med student. And I think even though underpowered, I think we can kind of see that there are some changes. But to see that actually was something that I was trying to coordinate for this one, but I think it was a little too lofty. We wanted to, I actually thought about doing that for other grad students, PhD students. I was actually going to hope to do a first class at med school and then first class in a PhD program. It was either BYU or we're thinking maybe find some grad students at Dixie, which is around the corner. So that way it would eliminate a lot of the other variables. But the idea was to do that. That's something still on the radar, but we had to kind of show that there are some changes in med school first.
Great. And then last question from Dr. Lee. Did it look at what course or rotation students were on or correlation between activity level, BMI, and when there was an exam to study for, et cetera?
So there was during G3, that's the session under which we have some of our more rigorous courses like neuroanatomy or neuro. And that was a period during which that was the biggest escalation. So perhaps there is some consideration there.
Yeah, I would add too that all these students were in the same courses at the same time. This was all first years and all take the same courses at the same time. So there's no staggering of courses. Everybody's in neuro at the same time. Everybody's in GI at the same time. So there was no fluctuation for each individual student. It was all as a cohort. Those eliminated that at least eliminated that variable.